morning, good evening, or good afternoon, and welcome to our Team of the Month Across the Pitch. My name is Phil Kennedy, and I'm here with Tony Robinson, and we're going to talk to a man who is living the dream, if you will. I know that if you're a serious football fan, at one time or another, you have to have thought, I'm going to get my own football club together. We have a guy on the line here who didn't just think about it. He went out and founded the team, Dekalb County United. And now he has come out with a brochure that's going to tell you how to do so yourself. Welcome to Across the Pitch, John Hall.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Nice to spend some time with you, John. Looking forward to hearing about your team and the startup. We're always interested, when we see a new team starting from scratch and how you go about it and everything. And I think one of the things that we could differentiate with your startup to teams that maybe have a bigger name or from the bigger leagues is this is not a franchise model, correct?
Yeah, correct. This is our club really started from just an idea of, man, it'd be neat if we had a place to play when we were aged out of the youth game at the under 19 level or played in college. And then, where do you go after that? And we wanted an opportunity to have a platform for our local players to continue to play on and represent. I mean, everybody loves the camaraderie of being in a true team locker room, kind of, where you're really spending time in the training sessions and that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden you blink and you're 23 or 24 and it's all gone. And obviously, we weren't the first. There's a number of these elite amateur, semi-pro, call it what you will, leagues around the country and clubs around the country now starting. And so we're able to provide that platform. And for us, it was building how we figured out we were going to build it was it has to be tied to the community. It can't just be a soccer club. And our newest motto is kind of more than a soccer club because
now speaking of your community, one person that we definitely need to mention right off the bat before we get too far into things is a man who I understand is your cousin and actually one of our listeners, and he's the guy that kind of alerted us to the club in the first place, and that's Happiest Joe's. But Joe is your cousin, and he is just absolutely one of the most enthusiastic soccer supporters that you'll ever meet. Just seems like an all-around great guy.
Yeah, he is my cousin, and he's great because he's always so positive, and where we like to inflict some angst at our rivals, he is always positive to everybody and supportive of everybody. And he's been a great Southern ambassador for our club down in the Georgia area. So yeah, hello, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, it's just great the community that you guys have founded down there. And now you got started in 2017. And my understanding is you kind of started off just by selling memberships to kind of fund the start of the project. Is that how it started?
Yeah, that was the first question is, well, this is a great idea and everybody loves the idea. How are we going to pay for it? Fortunately, we had I like to connect with people. So I did a lot of research talking to people that had been down this road and tried different things. And, what do you do for this? What do you do for that? And that's going on a lot in this country right now, which is really great. But that was one of the things that right away, man, we got to solve this problem. So we created what we thought was our list of expenses and how much that was going to take to operate for one season. And then we went about talking to sponsors and talking to people to join as members and ticket holders and try to start creating some opportunities in whether it's youth camps or tournaments or other soccer related events to promote the sport, to promote healthy lifestyle, and to promote that sense of community pride. And we started in about January of 17 was kind of our first conversations. And we actually didn't kick a soccer ball at our first tryout until January of 2018. So it was a full year of boardroom planning, which I say boardroom, I mean my kitchen table after the kids go to bed. And you just really bootstrap the whole project one meeting at a time, one project at a time. And you just try to grow the awareness like any other new business.
Tell us about one of the first persons that you sort of checked with that, about getting this thing off the ground and who that person was.
Well, I actually reached out to another local fellow that I played. I'm older, a little bit older, and so we still play recreationally, but the guy's name was Colby Newquist, and he was actually playing for Aurora Borealis, which is no longer a club in existence, but they about 20 minutes from us, 25 minutes from us. So it was a great natural rivalry. At least that was our intent. And he had been playing for a few years, and him and a handful of others that are from our community were driving to play for another community's club. And that was kind of where I said, man, aren't you tired of driving over there? Why don't we just start something here? And then, of course, he was all about it. And we started to put the group of founders together. And it starts with, you talk to this person and they're interested, and then you kind of drag them in, and then don't let them go because you need the help. And then you just kind of build this little group to kickstart it. And fortunately or unfortunately, none of us were willing to put our own finances into it. And I've said this many times, we will represent the club and we will do the work for the community, but I'm not also going to pay for it, because I'm not going to force it. If the community isn't ready to accept it or support it, then maybe we'll just move on. But so far so good. And we would have been playing our third season this year.
Tell folks that, now you mentioned a bit about local rivals and things like that. Tell folks exactly what league that you play in and how many teams are in it and things like that. And I understand it's a semi-pro fourth tier league, which would be, for our listeners, would be equivalent to like USL League 2 in terms of the U.S. pyramid. But tell us a bit about the league itself.
Yeah, we are. We were, I think, the third member to join the new Midwest Premier League, and I personally, I guess, helped found that. We tried some national amateur league our first two seasons and just wasn't really pleased with the experience, and we thought, well, we'll just create something of our own. So it's very. I don't know that. I think there's one or two teams maybe that might pay some players. We are a fully amateur side. Most of the other clubs are the same way. It really, I think the way we started the league was, we're not going to grow and expand like some other leagues in the U.S., just kind of draw teams and try to pull teams and collect expansion fees. We're very much, we are all run by ourselves. The league is run by the clubs. So the clubs really dictate the trajectory. So we as a group put together our list of expenses, and we divide the cost by the number of teams, and that's our fees for the year. It's going to go up and down year to year, depending on teams, depending on who joins. But what it is more than anything is a network of people in different clubs in different markets in our area working together so that all clubs can succeed. Because I'm very tired of seeing clubs pop up for 2 or 3 years and then disappear. And we want to help everybody on the business side of, everybody can play soccer. Everybody can find a coach. That's not the problem. That's not the challenge. The challenge is being sustainable within your community and, in the bank to make sure that you can be around for the long term. So that's what we try to do in the Midwest Premier League. We really try to help each other and share best practices off the field.
And I think that's an important point you make, John, because when we had Dr. David Kilpatrick on with us talking about the leagues and the system in the States, he did mention that the life expectancy of a startup team is 3 to 4 years, and it seems like some of the reasons that they don't get it right is they don't put best business practices into practice, what you're saying is when you have costs and another team comes in, then everybody pays equal share. So it's a model that should sustain itself when you operate that way.
Well, I think it's like anything else. You kind of put it in business perspective. It's a lot cheaper to keep a customer than it is to go find a new one. It's a lot less effort. And for us to have a league, we're not constantly losing 2 teams and then trying to find 2 to replace it. We just want to be able to make it easy at the league level so we can focus on our clubs and on our communities. So I think that's what we're starting to do. Unfortunately, 2020 would have been our first season as a new league, and that got canceled in March. So what we've been able to do, though, is try some other initiatives and other projects. And I think a lot of the clubs in our area that I deal with, everybody's trying to get stronger on the admin side and try to build a stronger volunteer base and try to use more creative ways to engage the community through virtual events or different things, and not disappear because you didn't play for, an entire year. But I think it's really great that we're able to build. We absolutely despise each other when we play, but after the game and in between games, we at the club league level are kind of, we're always talking and always sharing and trying to help each other. And that's what it's going to take a lot. We got to take the egos out of it. You got to take the potential profit out of it. It's got to be about the mission. And that's where I am. And that's where we are as a club and as a league.
Well, you mentioned a community club, and I think that's it's come up 2 or 3 times. And with your club, the structure, and when you go on your website, you see the people involved. And I think it's important to recognize that the club wouldn't be where it is without these people, and they're all volunteers, right?
Yes, correct. The coaching staff gets paid, and everybody else is a volunteer. So, I'm extremely fortunate to have stumbled upon some amazing people that not only wanted to support the club, but wanted to be more active and kind of take on a role within the company, so to speak. I have no idea. I've thought about this for many, many hours trying to figure out what the key is to that. The one thing that I've shared with people is just if somebody offers to help, never let them go. You gotta bring them in, find what they're good at, find what they're passionate about, and keep them engaged. And apparently I've done that well enough at this, year 3 that our supporter group, our volunteer staff group has continued to grow, and people are taking on more active roles where I'm able to step back and do fun podcasts and things like that now. So it's been neat to see the trajectory of the staff kind of develop over the first few years.
Before I turn it over to Phil, I was just going to ask, one of the first persons you sort of got support from or ran the idea by was your wife, and that was important to get some feedback and get her on board, correct?
Yeah. So my wife played soccer in college, and so we have, we both have history in the game of soccer. And then we were Chicago Fire season ticket holders for a number of years. Yeah, when I at first kind of thought about it, I sent her a text one day and said, "Hey, I think I want to start a semi-pro team in Dekalb County." And then I waited for the 3 little dots, because that was either the birth of it or the death of it. And she said, I think she said, "Sounds great," or "Let's do it." I think she said, "Do it," and like 3 exclamation points. And from that moment on, I knew I had her support. So one little text message could have derailed the whole project, but she's been amazing too. She joined the board when we first started, and she's got some background in event planning and different things. So she's able to bring some, look at it from the supporter's view. When we host a game, we want it to be interactive and fun, and the kids to have a good time. And it's been great.
Let's talk about your branding a little bit, because one of mine and Tony's favorite things is your logo. So tell us a little bit about the logo, because I understand that there's a story behind it, and it's a local artist that made it for you, correct?
Yeah, actually, that was a contact that my wife had from high school, and his name is Mike Figueroa, and he's at FigSig Arts on Twitter, and she approached him because he's kind of a local artist, and he's obviously very talented. And we just said, "Hey, we want to do some sort of agricultural theme logo." He's from the area, so he knows. I don't have to explain it to him. And he gave us a handful of napkin drawings, and we kind of said, "Oh, I like those. Couple do those." And then he did this logo, and once he did them in color, it was pretty clear winner that, hey, this is the one. It's got some traditional characteristics in the shape and some of that, but with the barbed wire and the soccer ball corn kind of growing.
Yeah, tell us the significance of both the barbed wire
at the top,
that's interesting, and also the corn soccer ball. The corn soccer ball is my favorite, but the barbed wire, that's really interesting.
You don't see that on too many logos.
Yeah. So barbed wire is. I just saw something recently that somebody in Ohio claims that barbed wire was founded in Ohio, but everybody here, barbed wire is a Dekalb thing, and the Dekalb High School mascot is the Barbs. So it's part of here, but we're not just a Dekalb. We're Dekalb County, and Dekalb County is historically much more agricultural. And what we thought I didn't think of this, which disappoints me, but when I saw this logo, I said, he's growing a soccer ball. He's growing a soccer club on this logo. And that's what people do here. We put things in the ground and we grow them, and you have to nurture it and you have to water it and all these other things. And that's what we're doing. And that doesn't stop, at year 1 or year 2. You have to continually nurture this plant or it goes away. And so I love it, the symbolism of it. And so I appreciate that others enjoy it as well.
It's incredible. And if you're not familiar with the logo or you haven't seen it, if you go to acrossthepitch.com and just look at it's right at there at the front of our homepage under Team of the Month, DeKalb County United. And the other thing about DeKalb County United, and this is kind of how you guys ended up as our Team of the Month, you guys have become a bit of the Forward Madison of the Midwest Premier League on Twitter, if you will. Why don't you tell us about your social media success a little bit?
Well, my good friend Nick, who does the podcast with me on our podcast, he handles all that online, and he's been wonderful. I actually met him. He used to do some soccer blogging. He handles all of this stuff, and it makes us look really good. And, Forward Madison, I think at one time they had this little slogan of like, we want to be everybody's second favorite team. And we're sort of okay being everybody's third favorite team because there's room to support multiple clubs. And obviously we're working on an amateur volunteer budget here. So we're not going to compete with what they put together, but certainly we try to stay active. We try to stay engaged. We try to support others, do all the things the way that we think all clubs should do it. So yeah, Nick really makes us look
that's
really
a great point that you make, because I think that's a lot of what we try to do with this show with Accrington Stanley is, we understand that Accrington Stanley probably isn't going to necessarily take a Manchester United fan or a Liverpool fan and have them switch their first team. But I think that a lot of people can get behind the story of Accrington Stanley, which I'm sure, as you probably are familiar with, because it's one of the kind of first stories, if you will, of a fan-owned club resurrecting itself. And, I'm sure that back in 1968 through 1970 probably approached a lot of the same issues that you're approaching now.
Yeah, and that's what I've always told people. I'm a Manchester United supporter only because they were the first team that I remember marketing in the U.S. when I was in 6th grade. So I'm a Man U guy forever. And I assume when they started in 18 whatever, 3 years in, they weren't any farther along than we are now.
Right.
And that's where your story starts at zero, no matter what. And who knows if we take care of this little crop that we've planted, if we take care of it, who knows where it can grow to. But for now, we have to keep it alive, and then we'll worry about the other stuff later.
Well, it's a good comparison when you look back at, the Football League started in 1888 with 12 teams, and, there was no guarantee of success. It was just really a way of coming together for teams to play an organized fixture list. But, out of look at how that's grown over the years into what it is today, and not only England, but around the world. So in some respects, when you're starting a new league in your area, there's some comparisons to what went on back in 1888. You're starting from the ground up with 10 or 12 teams, aren't you?
Yeah, and that's the whole point. And there's no reason, especially with an amateur side and trying to keep the budget tight, there's no reason we should ever be traveling 8 or 12 hours for a match. If there's a number of teams around here, I can get a competitive game against probably 25 or 30 teams within 2 hours of me. So I mean, that's one of the, I don't want to get into the whole U.S. pyramid thing, but the geography of the United States is we have to regionalize, and that's what we're doing with the Midwest Premier League. We said, we're not going to grow forever, in geography. Let's try to saturate our area, whatever that area is. Let's get as many teams in that area as we can. And then you can start talking about pro rel and different things. But I still think we're quite a few years away from being ready for that, because until the teams know that they're going to be around for the long term, you just can't start dividing them up into divisions and levels. And you got to make everybody sustainable first. And that's where I always advocate for take care of the club so they're here.
One question that I had for you here, it's kind of looking at the map, it doesn't seem like you're too far off from the western suburbs of Chicago. Do you get anybody there that kind of drives out from that area?
Yeah, we actually, even our players, we get players that drive hour and a half from every direction to come to the middle of the cornfields to our club, which speaks to something we're doing right. I don't know exactly what it is, but yeah, we do. We get fans that come out a little bit from the east. We get a lot even from the west. We're just a rural town sort of in the middle there, and we recruit anybody that wants to support a club that's doing positive things. And that's one of the big challenges that Nick has with the marketing, is just trying to figure out how do you connect with so many people in so many different ways now, and social media, and with basically a zero budget for marketing. It's hard to get right in front of people's faces and then give them this whole story of what we are and why we are. It's a difficult task, and we're going to have to keep working on it.
Well, I think when we talked about the life expectancy of teams of 3 to 4 years, it's the old adage is you gotta crawl before you can walk, and you don't want to grow and expand or spread out too quickly, because then that just sort of spoils the business model. But one of the things that interests me, and it's a term that we hear kicked around a lot in the lower leagues in every country, really, is the term semi-pro. Because when you hear semi-pro, you think, well, is somebody getting paid, or who's getting paid, or how is that involved? What's your take on that, John?
Because it's not really defined, especially in the game nationally, there isn't clear definition. To me, we market it as a semi-pro club in our community right out of the gate, and we don't pay anybody. But I think the American public understands what semi-pro is. They don't understand what high-level amateur means. What does that mean? That's just another team of people, and you're asking us to support it. And when you say semi-pro, it gives you a little bit more of administratively, like, hey, we have to act professional. We have to operate professionally. Even if we're on a shoestring budget, it's about how you market yourself to your community. And now I don't have anybody in our community that says, well, I thought you said you were semi-pro, who's getting paid? Nobody asks those questions, but when I say we're a semi-pro club, they know exactly what we are trying to be from a competitive standpoint. And then it makes people want to be more supportive, because it's higher level soccer than, oh yeah, come watch my Sunday league team play, or hey, write us a check for $500 for my Sunday league. It's just the nomenclature. I think it's easier for the American public to understand to say semi-pro. And at the same time, you can't get college players into any trouble either. So very clear, we are an amateur side, but semi-pro to the world.
Yeah, I think that's an important factor that you mentioned when it comes to college players, because with the NCAA rules, that's different from in the UK. So I mean, it's a no obviously for a college player to take money from a sport for playing a sport, because as far as my understanding, it would affect their eligibility at the college level. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. And the difficult thing about the college rules is that everybody that reads them interprets them differently. So we have encouraged. We've got an under 23 men's side and an under 23 women's side. and those are mostly college players. And we've kind of shifted. Our first team is now almost entirely post-college players. And, but we try to be very careful about that. We try to communicate very well with the player and with their coach and with their AD or whatever, that, you know, the players have to understand what they're doing as well in their own rules. And because, again, everybody interprets them differently. So, but we definitely try to stay, you know, amateur and not cross any lines, because it's not worth that for any student athlete, certainly.
Well, I think that this is a good time for us to kind of get into what I would say was our lead story for today, because this is something I'm super interested in hearing about. But before we do that, there is one kind of thing that you said earlier that caught me as funny, because this is something I've tried explaining on the show, and I don't think that our English listeners would quite understand it, if you will. But it was what you were saying about Manchester United being the only team that was marketed commercially over here back until, you know, I would say up until about 10 years ago, even. And I always tell people that the first team that I ever started supporting was Arsenal. The reason that I picked Arsenal is because when I wanted to start kind of getting into the sport, literally everybody was a Manchester United fan. And I just said, well, you know, I don't want to support Manchester United. What other teams are there? And somebody said, well, there's Arsenal. And I said, great, I'll take them. But I don't think that people quite grasp that Manchester United literally was the only team you ever heard about.
In 90, I was in, you know, middle school and early in high school in the mid 90s. And Eurosport was a soccer catalog. It's now soccer.com. And they'd send out these catalogs, and you'd flip through all the boots and the clever T-shirts and the blah, blah, blah. And at the back was replica jerseys. And there was usually the Mexico national team, the U.S. national team, and Manchester United. Because even then, there was no Major League Soccer. So there was the Manchester United, the Red Devils were the first club in England, and we didn't have it on TV here. I didn't know any players. It was just like, oh, yeah, I like
it would be like once a year when Manchester United played Liverpool, it would be on ESPN, and that would be our soccer for the year.
Yep. And you better record it on your VHS so you can watch it next week again.
And it's funny because, you know, when you look back at that, when you guys are talking and about, you know, there's a lot of people who follow the, you know, the top six clubs sort of thing. And now you see more of the so-called lower teams in the Premier League getting followings across the states, not only from expats, but from people that are coming to find the Premier League and picking other teams. And my team as a boyhood was Burnley, which is not a glamorous team by any means, but you know, it was a team that I sort of I lived next town over, so it was one team that I supported. But it just goes to show you how much the sport has grown. Do you think the exposure that we get in North America, you know, from the Premier League and the like, has helped the grow the sport in the States, or do you think the MLS has had a bigger factor?
No, it's hard to say. I think it's we're fortunate that we have access now to so much on TV. I know a lot of people, depending on your time zone. I mean, I'm in the Midwest, and there's usually a 6:30 Premier League game in the morning, you know, 6:30, 9:30, 11:30. And a lot of times in the cold winter months, you get up in the morning, try to beat the family up so that you can have a quiet cup of coffee on a Saturday. And there's a lot of people I know that have just started getting into it because it's sports on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning. They don't really know much about the game, but start to get into it. So I think the Premier League's had a big impact, and probably just as casual sports fans that turn it on and put it on in the background and in the weekends. I think those guys have probably gone and like, let's go check out an MLS game now, because I've seen what it's like over there. Let's go see what it's like, you know, an hour down the road. So I think it's all good. I don't know. Obviously we've grown a little bit. I don't know if we've grown any smarter, but we've grown a little bit. And if nothing else, you know, small community clubs like ours hopefully can pop up because this country is full of potential.
Well, let's talk about small community clubs like yours, because this will be the last and biggest thing that we talk about. And my prediction is that this is something that's going to cause both a lot of new soccer teams and a lot of new divorces to pop up, which is your club startup pack, which I see you just launched today on Twitter. Tell us, what is the club startup pack, John?
Well, so what? This is another idea. When you have a COVID non-season, you have time. You know, of course, a lot of people are kicking around the idea of starting a club like we did, and like so many others have, and had a lot of success. I normally, over the last 3 years, I'd get an email and I'd sit down and I'd type out a 3-paragraph response and I'd send it back and we'd exchange emails. And I just kind of sat down in the last few months and just sort of summarized key notes about different topics. And I think one thing that hasn't been in the market, at least for this level of soccer, was like share some sample documents. Show me in black and white what you have for a coach's agreement. What do you have for a player agreement? What do you what do you use for a budget? All these things that I sort of one-off just sent to people as they requested it. And we thought, well, let's just put it all in a electronic version, so it's all there. And if we can sell a few of them and raise a couple of bucks for the club, then even better, because this is a summary of 3.5 or 4 years of my experience and networking and researching and talking and listening and talking and listening. And we just finally put it together and thought, let's see if there's any interest from people that reach out and email us, if they would spend a couple dollars for, some tangible documents. And I'm no author, but in my own words, I kind of wrote out key points and things to think about as you're either deciding if you can start a club, or when you start it, some things you need to think about, like community involvement, raising money, things like that. So we're really excited about it. And I hope it just launched a few hours ago from the time we're recording this. So hopefully it provides not only some revenue for the club, but it'll provide just kind of a playbook for people to get going, hopefully.
Where can folks get it at?
It's on our website at dkcunited.com. I'll get it up on the home screen.
And it looks like it's $49 for the club startup pack. Grab your copy of the Essential Guide to Starting Up a Non-League Club, packed with advice and expertise, templates, guides. This downloadable file is intended to give you all the information you need to decide whether or not to embark on the journey. We don't say we're doing it right. We don't think ours is the only way, but we have done it, and we want to help you do it better. And it's a business plan template, bylaws, player agreement, coach agreement, brewery agreement, prospectus with sponsor levels, a la carte sponsor menu, sample budget, sample participation waiver. I know when Andy Holt put out the Accrington Stanley budget on Twitter that was something that a lot of people really got into. So I mean, this is that kind of information where there's just not owners of teams that make this type of stuff public. So this is a really unique product.
Well, and it looks like that at such a reasonable cost, anybody who purchases that, who wants to go forward, is going to save a lot of money in the long run by investing in a small amount to get this package. So kudos to you guys for putting that together. And
that $49, I assume that goes back into the club.
Yeah, it all goes back to the club. It's just something, because like I said, I was spending so much time replying to emails that I thought, man, this is, we don't need to charge $500 for it or anything like that. If anybody's realistically going to start a club and they don't have $49, then they're probably not going to succeed anyway. And if they already have a club, there's probably tidbits in here that they could pull out of it to improve what they're doing, or things they hadn't thought of before. So whether it's an existing club or a new club, our goal is every community in the country should have a club. And then we can make some real progress as a nation. But it all starts with sharing. And I didn't think that for $49, we certainly didn't want it to be a money grab. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's good information. in a very informal format that you can customize and tweak to work for your club. And I provide my contact info in there as well for, follow up if somebody has some questions, and that's fine. But at least this gets most of the questions I get answered right out of the gate.
I think it's great.
Not only that, but even if you're not somebody that's planning to start a soccer club, and you just want to say, I want to do something to support a grassroots club, it's $49. You're going to get some access to some information that's going to be interested to anybody that's listening to this show, if you will. Because I mean, our listeners are really the kind of people who they support the game for the love of the game. I mean, that's why we're here talking about your club, Dekalb County United, or Accrington Stanley, or who we do a show about a Loughborough Dynamo or Warrington Town. I mean, these are the kind of people that care about football and the community and what the football club does for the community. So, if you just want to, kind of do something to help out a community football club, go and grab this club startup pack. It's going to be a fun read if you're somebody that enjoys this show. I think. Wouldn't you say that, Tony?
Oh, I agree 100%. I think it's a great tool, and I think it's just a great initiative putting that together, John, and sharing it. Because I'm a big believer in what you said is every community should have a club, and what a way to bring communities together and at all different levels. It just does, it doesn't mean because you have a small community you can't have a club. You just have a club that fits within that size of the community. So, as I said, hats off, and I wish you continued success. And I assume that your next season will start in the spring of 2021. Is that what you're aiming for?
Yep. Normally we kick off preseason about the first week of April, and then we run through the summer. And so we're obviously hoping some of the COVID things are addressed where we can get back to a little bit more normal. And we're really gearing up, as a staff. We have monthly advisory board meetings and quarterly board of directors meetings and intermittent committee meetings, and there's a lot of administrative things going on, even though we're not playing, and we're hoping to come back even stronger in 2021 and keep building on the strong foundation we've started. So I appreciate the plug on the packet for sure.
Well, we'll keep an eye out for your start of the season, and as I say, continued success.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it very much. Thank you, guys.
It's fantastic to see what you're doing for your community there, and we're going to keep an eye on you. And as Tony said, continued success. And we really want to see the Midwest Premier League and leagues like this get a footing in this country. Because I mean, I'm not here to say that the MLS is a bad thing, because it's certainly been a good thing for the game overall in this country. But as when we had David Kilpatrick on, and he was talking about the New York Cosmos and their model of, how the single entity system can't be the end game if the U.S. ever wants to be able to compete with the top European leagues. So I think that we really need the rogue teams, if you will, like DeKalb County United, that put that pressure on the MLS to at some point have to change their business model and say, yes, the game is now popular enough in this country that we don't need the training wheels anymore.
Well, it's certainly going to be, there's a lot of uphill battles in dealing with that. And it's unique to other sports because the U.S. is a powerhouse in so many other sports as it is, with that essentially single entity model, with the NFL and Major League Baseball, NBA. I mean, it works very well in other sports, but soccer is just so different. And if I always think about this, if there was pro rel and maybe there is, I don't know all of Europe and across the world, but if there was pro rel in basketball in Spain, is anybody here going to be clamoring for a pro rel basketball system? I don't we expect it in soccer because everybody else does it. And I really I really have no idea what the right and wrong things are. I know that the more people we can put around a field watching their team, whoever that is a good thing. And the more opportunities for our players to go on. Our league just announced an affiliation with NISA, which is a pro league in the U.S. that is parallel with USL and the whole MLS model. And, that's our whole goal was let's provide our clubs with some resources from a professional league and our players the opportunity to take a step up.
NISA, that's the league that the Cosmos are in, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So
they're kind of a growing league as well at the professional level. But again, the budgets, I'm not ready as a club to take a step up to the professional ranks. That's a big step. Yeah. So Pro Rel in itself I would turn down a lot of promotions unless, there was the financial incentives behind it, because I can't play ball at the next level. This is where we can afford to be, and this is where we're going to be until further notice.
That's a big counter argument that I bring up to people a lot, where they say, well, there should be pro rel in the U.S. And then I kind of say, well, look at the Richmond Kickers. They were second tier. They asked down to third tier. I think that there's some markets that can maybe support it. Dr. Kilpatrick, he made the counterpoint where he's saying, well, there's a lot of markets that could support it if they were at the top level. Like, let me ask you this. If DeKalb County United was an MLS team and the MLS was somewhere in the global rankings along with the Premier League, and let's say that DeKalb County worked their way up and became a Bournemouth kind of story, people from Chicago would start driving out to see those games, and the market maybe could support it, but you would have to have that top level talent to make that happen.
I completely agree. And with that comes that top level marketing budget and scouting budget. And and you know what? The Green Bay Packers are a great example of that. You can be in a small town and have a statewide, state represented franchise in the NFL, which is a massively powerful league, which is essentially, it's a closed league like most are, and it can work. Again, we are where the Green Bay Packers were 100 years ago. We're at the beginning of our story, and nobody knows how the story plays out, but there's unlimited potential. Unfortunately, money just kind of is a big factor with all of it, because you can only do so much until you have the investment or the financial support. And we're okay where we are doing what we're doing. And if a different opportunity presents itself, we'll put it in front of the group and do what's best for our club long-term and our community. And we won't fight the Pro Rel fight quite yet, because there's too many unknowns and too many people that have an opinion about it, to be quite honest.
Well, you're still growing and getting established, and you can't, as I said, you can't do too much until you get sort of fully established, and then grow and do it properly and grow at the right speed, not just expand for the sake of expanding, adding teams. So we're in the middle of something, and like you say, it's just, we see things grow and things will develop in time. But I think your model is something that will work. And as Phil said, hopefully some people will take you up on your package and start some other community-based clubs.
Hey,
so
doing a heck of a job, John.
Yeah, we look forward to that. And as I said, all the best for next season, and long, keep up the good fight.
All right, I appreciate the opportunity to chat. It was nice meeting you guys. Thank you for the support.
Absolutely. Have a great one, and continued success. And we will keep our fans and listeners in tune with everything that's happening in DeKalb, even after this month ends.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Cheers.